away to my Father, but I will return.
Now, considering verse 4 of chapter 70 of the Holy Quran, which we read at the outset, the premise of this message, we learn that something significant happens at a particular point in history, which is at a predestined 50,000 year mark. Now, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the earth is more than 78 trillion years old. So there have been millions of 50,000 year periods in the last 78 trillion years. Islamic scholars generally agree that this verse represents or tells us of the achievement of a very lofty condition at a particular 50,000th year milestone, wherein the spirit, will, or presence of Allah covers the earth. Now, this view is quite evident in this verse, verse 4. So we do not have to be Islamic scholars to figure that one out. However, these same scholars avoid tackling the meaning behind these 50,000 years. Why? Well, such scholars did not know the meaning or wisdom of the Quran, the Holy Quran, until the Messiah appeared. And this is affirmed in the very book itself, where it states, "And he," meaning Allah, "will teach him," the Messiah, "the book," Quran, "in the wisdom," the hidden wisdom, "in the Torah," in the gospel. Well, if the millions of so-called religious scholars of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam over the last 1,500 years knew the book in the wisdom, in the Torah, in the gospel, then there would have been no need for the Messiah's appearance, because the earth would be filled with peace, decency, and reverence for human life. But we know this is not the reality today, nor has it been the last 6,000 years. Now, in verse 3, again going back to Surah 70, the ways of ascent, we are informed that Allah is the Lord of the ways of ascent. Now, that seems to be an unusual attribute of Allah. Well, a Lord, or as it's called in Arabic, Rab, is one who governs the affairs of another in an effort to guide that person through the necessary stages that lead to their perfection or to the fulfillment of that which he or she is predestined to accomplish. That's what a Lord does. A Lord is not sitting somewhere where you can shine his or her shoes, or carry his or her bags, or give him or her, or he or she, a manicure. They're responsible for knowing your purpose, or at least seeing some indication of it, and helping you along in that way. That's a Lord. Well, what is ascent? Ascent is an act of ascending, which is upward movement or a rising movement. Now, Allah, as the best knower, plans and orchestrates the means through which his divine servants and his chosen people mature and rise into the fulfillment of their purpose or destiny. Now, there's much to consider when we examine the Honorable Louis Farrakhan today as the Messiah and predestined Christ. We can never fully comprehend that which was involved in his transformation and ascendance into divine power, meaning his journey from someone who once did not have the knowledge of himself or of God like all of us, to one who is now on the throne of God with his spiritual father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Notwithstanding our inability to comprehend the full measure of what was involved in his transformation, we have witnessed the presence and work of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan enough to sincerely consider the ways or methods that Allah used to assure the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's ascension to his throne of power, his meaning Allah's throne of power. Now we can find some of these ways in the Quranic and biblical narratives about the prophets. The Messiah, as it states, coming in the volume of the book or in the volume of the Messianic Prophecies, means that he fulfills key aspects of the lives of the prophets, which includes prophets such as Noah, Abraham, Moses, David, Joseph, Jonah, Jesus, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them. The fulfillment of many significant events described in these prophetic narratives represent the means through which the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has developed into his predestined function as the Messiah and in the executive powers of the Christ. Now, this narrative of Moses aligns with the narrative of Joseph. Why is this? Well, both prophetic accounts set the expectation for the Messiah's journey among us. Why did Joseph and Moses have to go through difficult journeys? How does the fulfillment of the narrative of Moses correlate to the histories of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, since these narratives never happened historically and their prophecies to unfold upon the coming of Allah and the raising of his Messiah? Where do these narratives fit in the fulfillment, in their fulfillment in the lives of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan? Now, according to what we know of the history of the lost foundation of Islam, both men, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, were nurtured by their respective teachers. And then when their teachers departed, the hypocrisy that was already among the so-called registered membership, or not so-called, the registered membership of the lost foundation of Islam broke loose, and their lives were threatened by some of those who had once cheered them, yet hated them in secret. As a result, both were sent into exile, then eventually returned to rebuild the work of their teachers. In this case, Master Fard Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, built his work. And of course, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, his rise in 1977 to rebuild the work of his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This shows that their being cast out from among the hypocrites after their teachers departed from them was part of the process of their development into the quality of divine leadership that Allah desired and required of them. Well, this 30-month time period of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's exile reflects the 3 days that Jonah was in the whale's belly before agreeing to preach the divine message of Allah to the people of Nineveh. We're talking about the fulfillment of prophecy. So we move from Joseph to Moses to Jonah. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan informed us on many occasions that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him that he had to do more than just preach that Jonah went to Nineveh. Now, during that time, how often was the Honorable Louis Farrakhan teaching the narrative of Jonah? I mean, I just wonder that. Well, what did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mean by this statement or command? What was he telling the Honorable Louis Farrakhan about his future, since that statement was futuristic? Now let us consider Jonah's journey according to the Holy Quran again, which just gives us a more precise representation of this prophecy. And this will help us to see something of the more that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan had to do in fulfilling the biblical and Quranic narratives about Jonah. Now it states in the Holy Quran, "So also was Jonah among those sent by us, when he ran away like a slave from captivity to the ship fully laden. He agreed to cast lots, and he was condemned. Then the big fish did swallow him, and he had done acts worthy of blame. Had it not been that he repented and glorified Allah, he would certainly have remained inside the fish till the day of resurrection. But we cast him forth on the naked shore in a state of sickness, and we caused to grow over him a spreading plant of the gourd kind. And we sent him on a mission to 100,000 men or more, and they believed. So we permitted them to enjoy their life for a while. Now, in a previous message, we touched on aspects of how the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is fulfilling the narrative of Jonah. Notwithstanding, there is much to these verses, as they also refer to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's 30-month exile and to specific assignments of his work as the Messiah. Therefore, Jesus' statement correlating the Son of Man to that of the prophet Jonah is fulfilled through the Honorable Louis Farrakhan's journey, since this Son of Man is also described as the Lamb of God. The sign of Jonah that Jesus is referring to establishes one of the means or ways through which Allah has guided the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in growing him up into his predestined function as the Messiah, the Redeemer. This arduous journey itself is the function of the Messiah. The journey itself is the Messiah's journey. But what does this mean? The awareness that the Messiah is present is born of the fulfillment of the prophetic narratives of the prophets. That's how you know he's present. And he has to journey through the prophetic narratives, which makes him the Messiah. Therefore, you cannot explain the Messiah's presence without attaching his presence to the true meaning of the prophetic narratives. And this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is revealing to us today through your brother, Karriem. Now, how many of you can explain what I just said? So you would be wise to listen to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is conveying to us, because he said he would represent the Honorable Louis Farrakhan to the people. He didn't say how he would do that, but some of us want to determine how he's going to do it. Well, you can't do that because you're not him.